Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is our reading through the Tanak night, 2nd of February 27th, 25th, 2025, 2026. We'll be reading out the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16 through 20. We're going to read each chapter and break it down. This will be our 5 chapters for this week, okay? You can go to our YouTube channel, The Prophets of Awakening, and check out our videos. We have over 1,000 or so videos that you can look at, examine. All these videos will lead you to the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It'll be greatly appreciated. Okay, we have our Cash App at the bottom of the screen for those that want to support this channel and like the content. That too will be greatly appreciated. Okay. For those that don't know, this is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by our Savior and our Redeemer and our Deliverer, the Lord of Hosts. Okay. This channel was created to aid and assist our Hebrews who are waking up to their true identity in these last days and understanding who their Savior and their Redeemer truly is. Okay. Shalom and welcome to the channel. And welcome to our reading through the Tanakh night. Okay. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, prayer, Psalms. We have some current events, some need to know information. Then we'll open it up for anybody with any questions, any comments, any dialogue or testimonies. And then we're going to our topic for discussion, which is this white pastor has proclaimed that Black people are the people of the scriptures, the African Americans. So we're going to look at that and break it down. And then we'll go into our reading our 5 chapters out of the book of 1 Samuel. And then we'll pick a scripture like we normally do at the end of the class. And we'll read that scripture. Then we'll write it, divide it, and break it down. Okay. Then we'll close out. Okay. This moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts and all that he's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Lord, we thank you for your great mercy and your great power and wisdom. And we tarry waiting for your powerful deliverance of your people, Israel. Oh Lord, you have given us insight into the scriptures of our forefathers, and you, O Lord, have directed us to who you are and the role and the goings on of heaven and earth. When we come this day, doubtless that you will appear and that you will gather your nation from among these wicked Gentiles. Tarry not, O Lord, the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for you. Peace be unto you. Okay? Read the Psalms right quick. Okay. Okay, I'll read Psalms 2. It says, why do the heathen rage? Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder, cast away their cord from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion, and I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, thou art my son. This day I have begotten thee. Acts of me, and I shall give acts of me, and I shall give thee the heathens for thy inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, and thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed or best are all they that put their trust in him. So this is Psalm 2. And when you've been on this channel for long enough, you understand that who our Savior and our Redeemer is, and also who our Messiah is. The Messiah is Lord of hosts chose David in 1 Samuel chapter 16. He got Saul to go and fill his horn with oil, and he anointed David. And David is the Messiah that's in Israel. In these Psalms, David the one who wrote these Psalms. So they wanted you to think that David is, that Jesus is being talked about in these scriptures, but David wrote these Psalms, and he's dealing with the Lord according to what the Lord has done to him, right? So he's made him the anointed one, and he's made him king over Israel. And every king after him came out of his loins. So David is the anointed one. And he says it right here in verse 6. Yet have the Lord of hosts is talking, Michael. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill. So this is Psalm 2. It's way back when David wrote the Psalms. So we can't be talking about JC. Okay? You have to understand that. Okay, and then he says, verse 10, he's talking to the kings of the earth. When you understand who these kings are, these are the mighty men, the giants that came forth when the angels came down, slept with women. Okay, and when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they came through the wilderness. They encountered all these different kings over these nations, mighty men. Deuteronomy chapter 2 is in particular, you can see it. Okay, but he says to them, "Be wise now." The Lord talking. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, be instructed, right? Ye judges of the earth, serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with a trembling, right? 12, kiss the Son, that lest he be angry. The Son, he tells you over here in verse uh, 5 that, let me get it. It says in verse, let me get it, okay. Yeah, verse 7. I will declare the decree. So it's a commandment. The Lord gave out a commandment. I will declare the decree. The Lord have said unto me, David talking, thou art my son, not JC, thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. This when he anointed him. Samuel anointed him. Okay. Then he tells him in verse 10, be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, and be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, rejoice with trembling. Then says, kiss the Son, David, lest he be angry and ye perish from the way when his wrath is kindled but a little while. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. Okay. So that was Psalm chapter 2. Why do the heathen rage? You got any feedback on that? Anybody got anything?
Shalom, brother. I do have a question about that last verse, sir. Is and shalom, everybody. Where put their trust in him, put their trust in King David.
Right. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Go read it again. Okay. It says, okay. If you go to verse 7, he says, you gotta understand what they done. They got you thinking JC is the son, and they got it from right here. He says, I will declare the decree. Yahweh, the Lord of hosts talking. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, thou art my son. This day, so David the son, he's telling you right here, the Lord declared the decree. Thou art my son, David. This day I have begotten thee. So this is the son. Now you go to 10. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings of the, and be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord, Lord of hosts, with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, David. See that? Lest he, the Son, be angry. and ye perish from the way with his wrath, David wrath. His wrath is kindled, but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. So a precept for that is, go back to, I showed everybody in Numbers. Go to Numbers 24, right quick. Is it's a prophecy Balaam gave about David, and it says, and now let me see. Okay, yeah, it says 15, verse 15. And he took up a parable, it's Balaam, and said, Balaam, the son of Peor, have said, the man whose eyes were open, have said, he's in a trance. He has said, which heard the words of God, knew the knowledge of the Most High, which saw in a vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes open. Now here you go right here. He says, kiss the king unless he get angry. And then he, son, bringing wrath. Well, here go the wrath. 17. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nay. There shall come forth a star out of Jacob, except it shall rise out of Israel, shall smite, see that? The corners of Moab, destroy the children of Seir, and Edom shall be a possession. Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. So they got a wrath right there. Like I was saying before, when people always talking about the anointing and all that. Yeah, well, who anointing? Right. And so same with the wrath. Whose wrath? Gotta understand who wrath it is. Okay. So yeah, with that being said, we're gonna move forward. Okay. Got some current events. Yeah, I want to shine a light on this stuff. Got some pretty good information. Here we go.
I believe something really dangerous is happening in Israel right now. Over the last few years, Israel has been taking more and more sovereignty over the Temple Mount, allowing more freedom, and even reinstating the right to pray openly for non-Muslims. But this week, Israel's government quietly changed the rules. And I would make the argument that this is one of the most dangerous things Israel could do at the present moment, especially since Iran is possibly on the verge of acquiring hypersonic weapons, weapons that can sink aircraft carriers. Don't see how those two things are connected? Let me explain. So first we'll get into what's happening on the Temple Mount. Then we'll get into the new development with Iran. And then I'll go into how they are related and the massive danger they pose to Israel, a danger that really no one else is talking about. First, though, if you're a Christian looking for a meaningful Haggadah for your very own Passover Seder, we have something I think you'll really enjoy. Go to the israelguides.store or click the link in the description below. To date, on the Temple Mount, Muslims can ascend whenever they want to pray. A lot of times they just hang out, play soccer, eat lunch, etc., but there is very little restriction on what they can do. Non-Muslims, on the other hand, primarily Christians and Jews, can only ascend for a brief period in the morning and another brief time in the afternoon. And until recently, prayer of any kind has been strictly banned. But over the last few years, Israel has allowed more and more freedom on the Mount, to the point where they are openly allowing prayer for non-Muslims and are even handing out printed prayer sheets for groups ascending the Mount. By the way, if you've personally had the privilege of praying on the Temple Mount or would like to in the future, let me know down in the comments below. The freedom to pray has become so established that Jewish groups regularly ascend the Mount in the morning and in the afternoon to pray the established morning and afternoon prayers, creating a powerful spiritual dynamic for the nation. More on that in a second. But this week, with the beginning of Ramadan for Muslims, Israel quietly closed the afternoon ascension slot, meaning the time of daily national prayer in the afternoon, the time that corresponds and represents the daily afternoon sacrifice in the temple, has now been stopped. The organization Beyadenu, or In Our Hands in English, issued an open protest to this development, calling it a rollback of Israeli sovereignty and a violation of freedom of worship. Acting CEO of the organization, Akiva Ariel, said in a statement, Israel must not agree to a policy that actively shuts Jewish prayer out of the Temple Mount during the midday hours. Sovereignty is tested precisely in difficult times. The organization is calling for, at minimum, a compromise where a small group of 10 Jewish men could ascend the Mount at 12:30 in the afternoon to pray the afternoon prayer, so at least the spiritual dynamic for the nation could be maintained. This comes at a pivotal time in history because Israel is facing a massive threat. America has just accomplished the largest military buildup in the Middle East since the Gulf War, and it is looking more and more possible every day that they plan to use this buildup in some capacity against Iran. Iranian officials, in turn, aren't threatening a response against American troops. They're vowing to wipe the state of Israel off the map. And to that end, it looks like Iran is close to reaching a deal to purchase supersonic anti-ship missiles from China, missiles that reportedly the American military has very little defense against, meaning the nature of this coming war might be shifting in real time. If America launches a strike against Iran, things could go in a massively different direction than they did last year. Iran is back to building their nuclear missile development. They are back to producing thousands of new ballistic missiles. They have strengthened their air defense systems. And probably the most concerning, the regime leaders are desperate and more than likely feeling cornered. It's true, Israel has an amazing military. They have an amazing missile defense program. But history has repeatedly shown us that Israel's security does not come from man. Over and over and again in the scriptures, the nation of Israel only achieves victory over their enemies when they put their trust in God. The minute they put their trust in their own strength or military prowess, that is when danger strikes. And biblically, this was centered around the presence of God, dwelling among the nation first in the tabernacle, then in the temple itself. When Solomon was dedicating the temple with the entire nation of Israel, he prayed this prayer. And I can almost guarantee you've never read this passage like this before. I'm paraphrasing a little bit from the book of Kings, where Solomon says, when they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and you become angry with them and deliver them to the enemy, and they take them captive to the land of the enemy, far or near, yet when they come to themselves and when they return to you with all their heart and with all their soul, and pray to you toward their land which you gave to their fathers, the city which you have chosen, and the temple which you have built for your name. Then hear in heaven your dwelling place, your prayer and their supplication, and forgive your people. Then he also says, when your people go out to battle against their enemy, wherever you send them, and when they pray to the Lord toward the city which you have chosen and the temple which I have built for your name, then hear in heaven their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. Guys, before October 7th, Israel was absorbed in massive civil disruption. Israel had control over the Temple Mount, but the government had banned prayer there for Jews and Christians. If you even moved your lips in an act of prayer, you could be arrested and thrown into jail. And to be clear, I'm not judging individuals here. I'm just speaking about Israel as a nation from a biblical perspective. Israel had one of the most highly developed borders in the world between Israel and Gaza, yet somehow October 7th still happened. We don't know why God allowed that, and honestly, I don't think it's our place to make that judgment. But we do know that just as Solomon said in his prayer, captives in Gaza prayed toward the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, seeking the God of Israel for deliverance. And thousands throughout Israel turned toward God. They ascended the Temple Mount in holiness and in prayer, and the government responded by opening prayer stated on the Temple Mount after October 7th must continue. Also, the prayers from the nations around the world must continue. Prayers, like Solomon said, facing toward the Temple Mount. And God willing, we will yet again see another incredible miracle, an incredible deliverance of God's people by God himself.
Any feedback on that? What do you think? Okay, yeah, so they say that it's a lot of activity going on that's not normal on top of the Temple Mount. So, like I said before, they setting up to build this temple. This was everything we're looking at is about this temple being built, and we're gonna see that when the time comes. We're gonna look back and realize it was all about them building this temple, which is an abomination. Okay, so with that being said, we'll go to the next video. Right, they have nothing. Pretty.
Burkina Faso is facing a coordinated wave of violence. Reports indicate that armed groups launched large-scale attacks targeting key military positions across the country's northern and eastern regions. In the darkness before dawn, northern Burkina Faso exploded into conflict, not tension, not speculation, a calculated and organized assault. A military outpost was struck before sunrise. Communication lines were disrupted. Reinforcements moved quickly into terrain, still echoing with gunfire. By the time daylight reached the desert, the event had already begun spreading across international headlines. By morning, casualty figures were circulating, some confirmed, others uncertain. By midday, the words "major attack" were dominating news feeds. By nightfall, analysts around the world were debating what this meant for Captain Ibrahim Traore's leadership, for Burkina Faso's stability, and for the future of the Sahel region. But pause for a moment. What actually unfolded during those critical hours before global commentary took over? Was this a devastating breach in national security, or was it a calculated insurgent operation designed to create maximum psychological impact? Before the phrase "major attack" gained momentum online, there was deliberate movement on the ground. This was not random violence. It was a coordinated strike against a military position in a northern region that has long faced insurgent activity. The timing was strategic. The terrain was strategic. The target was strategic. Armed groups operating in the Sahel do not act without preparation. They study patrol routes. They observe response times. They identify weaknesses in defensive systems. When they attack a fortified position, it is because they calculate that the psychological effect will outweigh the military risk. Early reports described intense fighting. Casualty numbers shifted in the first hours, which is common in conflict zones where communication systems break down. But beyond the uncertainty of figures, one reality was clear. Insurgents were able to gather forces, advance rapidly, and temporarily breach defensive lines. That word, temporarily, matters. In this region, insurgent tactics often follow a pattern. Fighters converge quickly, strike with maximum force, seize weapons if possible, and withdraw before full military reinforcements arrive. Their objective is rarely permanent occupation. Their objective is disruption. They aim to break the image of invulnerability. They aim to prove that no position is completely secure. This reveals two critical realities at the same time. First, the insurgency remains mobile and organized. It retains operational coordination and has not collapsed. Second, this was not a large-scale territorial takeover. It was a strike and withdraw operation designed to weaken public confidence. Understanding this distinction is essential. An army that is collapsing loses cities. An army under pressure absorbs attacks. Now consider the geography. Northern Burkina Faso is more than a conflict zone. It is a corridor, a strategic passage connecting routes that extend toward Mali and Niger. For years, insurgent networks have used these cross-border pathways to move fighters and supplies. Even when territory is reclaimed, these networks adapt. This is the nature of asymmetric warfare. Create instability. Supporters argue that previous frameworks failed to resolve the crisis, but insurgent groups are not commentators in a debate. They exploit timing. If a regional security architecture is being consolidated, insurgents aim to disrupt it before coordination fully matures. That is how asymmetric actors behave during transitional periods, which leads to a sharper question. Is this attack proof that the regional model is fragile? Or is it a reaction from insurgents attempting to counter growing consolidation? There is an important difference. If attacks multiply without coordinated cross-border response, structural weaknesses are exposed. If joint pressure increases and insurgent mobility contracts, then the insurgency faces compression. Military escort. True control is not only military, it is civic. And that is the metric by which Captain Ibrahim Traore's leadership will ultimately be measured, not by isolated events, but by sustained structural stabilization. Third.
Okay, so we already knew this was coming. Now it's here. They didn't attack the Sahel. Okay. Anybody got any comments on that? Anybody heard anything about it?
Shalom, Brother Leonard. Well, yes, sir. We had seen they had pulled the ships up and was pretty much surrounding that area. So that makes sense that now it's happening, because they was also saying, yeah, that they were gonna do that last week.
Right. And not only that, Traore, if you've been watching it, he just gave Nigeria the ultimatum, because Nigeria is working with the powers to be, and so yeah, he just threatened them. So like I was saying, we should know that we should have known this was coming, because of, like I said, Black Wall Street. Anytime we stick our head out, they coming. Okay, so with that being said, we're gonna go to our need to know information, and this is tied to this story right here, because we'll go along tied together as we go. So right here.
American tourists that are now stuck. Apparently there was no warning, there was no, you guys need to evacuate now before this happens or whatever. So there are American tourists that are trapped in Mexico and told not to leave. Now, a lot of people are talking about the story, but I think it's really important also to get into who actually gives these weapons to the cartel.
So you see that America, we know these two working together, the whore and the beast working together, America and the Israel. So we see Trump came out threatening these same countries. He threatened the Sahel. He threatened Mexico, Canada. But watch this.
I'll give you a hint. It may not be who you think it is. So let's get into all of this, folks. Again, it was violence, crazy chaos in Mexico after a cartel boss was killed. Check this out.
This morning, millions on edge across Mexico after a military operation killed one of the country's most notorious cartel bosses. Criminal groups responding with mass vandalism and violence. The State Department urging U.S. citizens across several Mexican states to continue.
You think it's disconnected, but it's all connected.
New sheltering in place this morning from Tijuana to Puerto Vallarta. Officials say Sunday's military raid killed more than 30 cartel members, including the head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho. Video verified by ABC News showing parts of that operation, followed by a barrage of gunfire and blasts.
We have to skip that part here. There we go.
Say the violence erupted Sunday morning without warning.
Their goal was clearly to block all main roads in Puerto Vallarta, and clearly it wasn't to kill people, because they easily could have killed all of us.
Yep.
So that guy is an American tourist.
Eddie Pizer says he was vacationing with his husband and friends in Puerto Vallarta when their car was attacked by an armed man.
He got to the car, pointed at my head, and through the window said, "Get out of the car." And all of us exited the vehicle. And at that point, he got in the car and drove it just a few yards into the intersection, and then threw an incendiary device in it, which exploded, and the car was quickly engulfed in flames.
Now, do you see how the U.S. government doesn't stop and think about the safety of the American people before they start these types of operations? Yes, this operation was led by, of course, the U.S. government. They didn't stop and think about that. They also didn't stop and think about the fact that there are plenty of Americans that are retired that have moved to Mexico, right? In fact, if you look on YouTube, you can see a number of people that are like the expats that are living in Mexico, and they do these vlogs about their experience leaving the US and moving to Mexico, because it's, you know, a lot cheaper to live there if you're coming from the US. They didn't stop and think about these things, but just like they don't stop and think about civilians that may be harmed or killed in other countries when they go in and bomb people there. That's something I want you to make that connection to geopolitics, to domestic policy, like the way they treat people abroad, and compare that to how they treat us as well. Let's go on a little bit more here.
Now, the White House has confirmed the U.S. provided intelligence to Mexican officials, but now sources tell ABC News the CIA was instrumental in removing El Mencho, but no American troops were on the ground for the operation.
So here we go with the CIA again. Let's go ahead and go to the next one here, because they implement these operations and then they don't think about the fact, like, okay, there's people who may be affected, may be impacted, and then you just start total chaos in places. They are known for going into other countries.
And our car exploded.
Couple now reunited after being separated in the scramble. Many other American tourists are still unable to get out of Mexico. Since all of this unfolded, what's the scene on the ground like right now?
You would think it was peaceful, but it's kind of eerie.
Other Americans describing the warlike violence that unfolded over the weekend, with buildings engulfed in flames and choppers flying overhead.
From both sides of the helicopter, there are men with very large guns. So we just hoped that they were the good guys, and not the bad guys.
Mexico's president urging calm, saying the government is in control. Telemundo anchor Julio Vaquero describing the scene on the ground in Guadalajara.
Businesses that have been vandalized, broken glasses, bullets, cars that have been burned across the streets. Today, the work's to recover, the cleaning up to go back to normal.
Operations at Guadalajara Airport also coming back, and Americans like Yoni Pizer are hoping.
Yeah, obviously a scary time if you're there and you're a tourist, but also if you're an expat who lives there, you're like, what the hell is going on? I left the US and these things are happening. I want you to hear what the Mexico Defense Secretary said about where a lot of these weapons come from. I'm going to read this to you because he's speaking in Spanish, so listen here.
Ya se ha mencionado aquí hablando de la estrategia general.
Speaking of the strategy general, since the beginning of the administration, 23,000 weapons have been seized.
Se han asegurado en lo que va de la administración 23,000 armas. De esas 23,000.
Of those 23,000 weapons, 80% are U.S. origin.
Armas, el 80% son de origen norteamericano. Entonces, en este caso, más o menos es la.
So in this case, the proportion is roughly the same. I'm going to say it again. Of those weapons, 80% are U.S. origin, because the U.S. government has been known to supply weapons to the cartel in Mexico. But we're not the only ones. I'm going to tell you who else has been doing this.
Take it out.
So do you guys see the issue? The U.S. or other Western countries, they'll come in and they'll supply weapons to other groups, other organized crime organizations in these countries. These groups will then destabilize the countries, and then the U.S. will be like, use that as an excuse to go in and invade those countries.
Exactly.
You see this effect? This is one of the things that people don't sit back and ask. People complain about the cartel and they say the cartel's bad, yada, yada. Yeah, but they don't sit back and ask, where do the weapons come from? They're not making the weapons. They come from us. It was reported also in the Rolling Stone. Shout out to Power to the People. Important context to what is happening in Mexico. The CIA arms Mexican cartels. Now, some of you, I'll show you this in a second. Some of you might be familiar with things like this happening right here in the United States. I'll give you an example in just a second. How the U.S. state arms, the U.S. arms the Mexican cartels. This was reported by the Rolling Stone like a while back. So we've been arming the cartels, not you and me personally, But the CIA, the intel agencies here, have been arming the cartels in Mexico at the same time complaining about the cartels and saying that they need to take out the cartels. Tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't, does it? No. Now I want to tell you another example. That was also done right here in the United States. The CIA put drugs into urban Black communities. And then, of course, the police state goes in to arrest people in those communities. Now, there was a whistleblower who reported this information, and that was Gary Webb. And next thing we knew, Gary was gone. They say Gary did it himself. I think we know better. They've been doing this. They come in and they create chaos, because with chaos, there is destabilization. That's one of the easiest ways to destabilize a community, a neighborhood, or a country. A lot of times the chaos is caused from the outside. Now, they won't teach you this in the history books. You're not going to find this in your history textbook in school, whether it's high school, they're not going to teach you this. They're not going to tell you how the CIA came in and they infiltrated Black communities and they dropped drugs off there so that they could actually aid to the war on drugs. They're not going to tell you how the CIA drops off weapons to the cartel in Mexico so that they could create chaos and destabilization there. Weapons manufactured in Europe and ding, 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 Israel. Israel also sells weapons to the cartels in Mexico.
Come on. The whole
and the U.S. knows this too. The U.S. government, they know this.
Okay. Now check this out.
This is why I say it's good to ask, how did we get here, right? Like, this is the problem.
The main objective on this day has been to safeguard the safety of the people. Therefore, early this morning, from this security meeting, which is in permanent session, we activated Code Red, which remains in effect.
Fellas, what's happening in Mexico? Do you know what's happening in Mexico? There's burning around, explosion, people being unalived. There's havoc. The truth is, the cartel is very, very angry. Why? Because their boss is being killed by the army. Now, this is exactly what happens when the cartel is just as powerful as the army in the country. You don't know who controls. Look at the state of Mexico right now. And I know you've seen this all over the place, and maybe you don't quite know or understand what's happening. And this is why we're here. Thank you very much for stopping by. I appreciate you. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. Why are we talking about Mexico? We're talking about Mexico because a lot of Africans go to Mexico for tourism. Now, what is happening in Mexico? This is all being done by a cartel named CJNG. It is widely regarded as one of the most violent and expensive criminal organizations in Mexico and one of the top suppliers of fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin in the United States and beyond. So these are very well organized, dangerous people. Now, what has occurred? It is the death of somebody very important, the drug lord, the drug leader. So it's this man right here. His name is Nemencio Ortega Cervantes, but he's also known as El Mencho. Who is El Mencho and why is this happening? I think we're going to dive into this very quickly so we can all understand. Oil on his head. That meant $15 million for anyone who helped catch him. But in the end, no one got the money. The Mexican army killed him. If his death did not stop the violence, it's made it worse.
We only go out when it's necessary because people don't know whether to go out or what to do.
So the same thing that's happening in Mexico, happening in Sahel. And we just saw who it is that's spearheading it, that's giving the weapons out. Israel and America. Okay. Any comments on that?
Shalom, Brother Leonard. So, like you said, the same thing in that's happening over there is happening in Mexico. So they want to control Mexico. for the trade routes, or is it just
Well, they trying to topple what they see happening, the rising. These Canada and all these countries, they falling, and then the Sahel and all these places are rising. They behind the scenes trying to topple it. The same way they did with Black Wall Street and all those other cities that they see people rising, and they come in behind the scenes and they toppling it, but they trying to make it look like they actually trying to help, but they the ones behind it that's bringing it down. This is a whole trick. Like I said, they the ones, the powers to be, the one brought Hitler on the scene. They funded Hitler. They funded Napoleon. All these characters that come on the scene, they fund them because of, like I said, they're gonna cause destruction and tear up everything. Then they're gonna come back and make trillions of dollars off of it by rebuilding it. And at the same time, they bring the people down, the lower class that's starting to rise up. They're gonna bring them back down. It's just a mad cycle. That's how they stay on top. Okay. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay. Open it up for some Q&A. Anybody have any questions, comments, any dialogue about anything they came across? They want, they heard. They want to talk. They want to talk about it.
Shalom,
okay.
brother. I had one question to see. Did you see that they said Trump? There was another assassination attempt on his life the other day.
No, I didn't see that. What they say happened?
I can't remember exactly. I think it was on Promethean Action or the Promethean Update, that channel. But
okay.
But who would I need to go back and watch the clip again. But I was wondering, from your point of view, who you would think would be trying to take him out, though?
I say smoke and mirrors.
Right. Okay.
The same way they did with during the time of the election. All they did was they staged it like they staged assassination attempt to boost him up. You know what I'm saying? That's how they work.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else got anything?
Shalom. I think it was Saturday over in Africa, it probably was Sunday, but they had a meeting of all the leader heads, and Toure had got on to the president of Uganda and was calling him out in front of all the other presidents there. And he got up and just walked out. He didn't even, combat when he talked about all the things that he had done over the 40 years that president had been president of Ghana and he didn't say anything back. Did anybody hear about that one?
Yeah, I saw that, but it goes along with what I was saying. Not only him, right now as we speak, the Kenyan president already called him out, and I was saying earlier he called out the Nigerian president. So then you say, well, what's going on? Like I was saying, like Pastor Manny said, before it's over with, Boule Negroes gonna be the presidents over these African countries. So they using Toure to call all these to backdoor all these leaders like they incompetent. That's me. You know what I'm saying? So that's like I said before.
Yes,
these people still trying to. They trying to build. They want to build a temple. They ain't Yahweh haven't. It ain't came to the point yet. The day of the Lord ain't came yet. They still on their mission on what they trying to do. And they got an agenda. Like I said, you think it's a coincidence that this dude got a red hat on, and then you got all this history from even with Marcus Garvey, the red hat and the rebellion and all that. Come on, they staged it, just like they pulled a rabbit out the hat with Barack Obama. Nobody wasn't expecting no That show you how desperate they are. Nobody was expecting no black president, no time soon, but they was in desperation because of what our state of our mind. We at the point where we ain't going for none of that. What they talking about? The masses ain't. So they had to come in. They came in with the quail it. They throw everybody across with a black president, a black looking president. And so now, for them to this last incarnation of the four beasts, they come in with they come in with the decade of people of African descent, or 1, 2, and they using it. They using this whole thing. They bringing this in. Only thing gonna stop is the Lord of hosts gonna have to cut it off. Like I say, look at the rolling better initiative. Tory right along, they're using him right. He tied right into the rolling better initiative. Everything they got going on. Somebody say something?
So I'm just going to ask about this temple. What is the deadline for them?
They don't have a deadline. They have a plan, and they work, and then certain things that come up that they have to fine tune it. Then they just fine tune it. So like I said before, they got set back because of information. We starting to wake up, and information they were doing so many things back in the day to us, but we was in the dark. Like I said, like Jesus, Negroes didn't know that he wasn't real, so they was pulling all these hat tricks on us because we was in the dark. But the creators, Yahweh said through the Lord of hosts, he was gonna pour his spirit out on us in the last days, and we was gonna wake up, figure out who we are, and start figuring out what's going on around us. And that's what then happened. And that's what so they have to recalibrate what they're doing because they get exposed. That's like a prime example of what they're trying to do with Iran. They went over there the other couple of weeks ago with the intent they was going to knock them off, but a whole bunch of stuff then came about. Like with Russia and China and all that, they got to recalibrate the plan, but they got the same objective. So it's not like it's a certain date they got to wrote down. It's just that they know they had this plan and what they're trying to accomplish, and they knowing that it's going to be things that's going to come about that's going to sidetrack it here and there. They've been doing that for the last 3,000 years. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So with that being said, nobody else have anything. I'll play this right here. Then I'll deal with my topic for discussion.
According to reports, the United States is just days away from attacking Iran and starting a war. He is the president of peace. And I just want to
That's what I'm saying right here. Everybody around, they own people, they're insiders and all that. Everybody that know anything about anything know what they trying to do. There was a war. They went over there 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago to do what they was going to do to Iran. But obstacles came up.
Take everybody back to what he said about the strikes against Iran just in 2025.
I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular.
So this was in June 2021, June 21, 2025.
Military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. We assess that the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities has set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons for many years to come. The nuclear threat of Iran. That was totally obliterated.
Okay, we get the picture. He is going on and on about how successful the military strikes were. Yet, we have Steve Witkoff, who is the senior advisor to the president. He's a real estate broker, but he seems to be the advisor to the president on Iran, Ukraine, Russia, the whole nine. Here's what he said just yesterday about Iranian capabilities.
So up to 60%. They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material. And
so this is a problem. This is a problem for them.
That's really dangerous. So I can't have that. This is something that they.
Okay, so what do you think? Which do you believe, Jennifer?
Well, what I believe are the facts. The facts are that President Obama had an Iranian nuclear deal on the table. Trump dismantled it, and now he wants to start a war at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu and the American political sycophants to Israel. I'm talking about Lindsey Graham, I'm talking about Witkoff, I'm talking about Kushner, who these two, Kushner and Witkoff, who are so compromised to be our main foreign policy attaches, that now are proposing that we start a war with Iran simply so that they can get us back to a nuclear deal that we already had. This is utter insanity. I don't believe a word that comes out of Benjamin Netanyahu's mouth, Steve Witkoff's mouth, Donald Trump's mouth. These people are liars. These people see all of this as, how can we collude with Israel, lie to the American public, fleece taxpayer dollars, please Vladimir Putin. It is a foreign policy faceplant of the highest order as far as the United States of America.
You hear what she said? Please, Vladimir Putin. It's a one big organization. They got everybody else fooled.
Okay, guys.
I completely agree. And here's the thing about it. We have no one in the U.S. military that is competent. Pete Hegseth is completely incompetent. Donald Trump, completely incompetent. Yet, these two bozos will be in charge if we start a war with Iran. And Tucker Carlson went to Israel, and he met with Mike Huckabee, who is a nut of the highest order.
Exactly.
And so he asked him this question. I thought it was really interesting the way he spoke about the needs of America and how Mike Huckabee answered.
Like, how much does it matter what Americans think? Well, it matters every bit what Americans think. That's why Americans vote. It's why Americans have the opportunity to have free speech. We want them to have that.
Okay, so what percentage of Americans support a war with Iran?
I don't know. Do you know?
I do. I think it's right. I saw the numbers yesterday. I think it was like 21%.
Okay.
Is that enough to have a war with Iran?
We don't live in a world where you have a poll taken to find out whether our policy should be a particular direction.
No, I thought you just said that we vote.
No, we care deeply about it. But on the other hand, do we make the decisions of foreign policy and even domestic policy based on
we
what
care
the
deeply
latest
about
poll
it in
number
what
is?
sense? If we're ignoring it, then in what sense do we, quote, care deeply about it?
Well, I think we care deeply when we.
Here's the deal. He also, Huckabee went on in that interview to talk about how Israel should control the Middle East. And I mean, all of the countries over there in the Middle East, they sent like letters and all of these things.
So the thing to look at is, you think it's a coincidence all these nut buckets ended up in the same place at the same time? No, it's all been set up. You know, got all these extremists, Israel nut buckets, all of them, all of a sudden, Project 2025. It was all set up a long time ago. Okay, like I said, everything is about that temple. And putting the capstone on it. That's what that's about. Okay, we're gonna see that when it's all over with. Anybody got anything? Okay, so play this right here. This is right here. I said I was gonna start doing some having some conversations at noontime, and this is gonna be the first one right here. in the very near future. Check it out. Can't get out of this.
Colored.
Here we go.
Some false teaching and lies that you've been told while sitting in church or even watching movies, reading books. Moses
Negroes want to act as if they want to act if all this information is not out there and this truth is not out there, but we're gonna have to deal with it.
by God.
Real soon.
Given the 10 Commandments, most of the laws are based on that today. Even your Constitution in America some of it is based on the 10 Commandments. Moses, born in Africa, raised by Africans. Moses was a Hebrew, an Israelite, and a black man.
So many people are blinded to the scriptures, blinded to historical truth. And they're led by their heartstrings, but it's not actually fact.
Exactly.
One of those things, again, that people have been led for so many years is thinking that the Ashkenazi are in fact descendants of Shem. And we've discovered that the Ashkenazi are in fact the synagogue of Satan. They're the descendants of Japheth. They're Turkic Mongols from the Khazarian region that convert.
So how in the hell is that Shem brother? Come on.
To Judaism in the 6th and 7th century. These are the things that we've discovered over the past few months.
Exactly.
Those teachings came across in exposing the rotting stick of Israel and the synagogue of Satan that are in our archives. But then if I'm going to go forth and say, well, those that say that
they are... got all these Hebrew Christians. He go European. Shameful. Okay.
Are Jews, but are in fact not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And the Ashkenazi are in fact not Jews. They are sons of Gomer, Japheth. They're not even Shemites. Many people have come to me and said, well,
who you hear what he said? They're not Shemites. So how the hell they his brother? Let that ferment. How the hell is that his brother? Okay.
Real Jews then? Where are the Jews and what's going on? I mean, we understand that we're Joseph's multicolored coat and we're exiled into the nations, but if Yahweh is gathering the whole house of Israel, all 12 tribes, and the stranger that wants to graft in and join, then where are the tribes and what's going on?
There we go.
So I think it's really important to address this subject because, as I said, 92% of the people that say that they are Jews today are in fact Ashkenazi, sons of Gomer, so thereby are the synagogue of Satan, they who say they are Jews and are not. So who are the real Jews? That's the question that has been posed to me many times over the past months. And there's really two answers to that question. And I'm going to be thorough today because I need to be thorough.
You got to put that bullshit ass chicken dinner down on Sundays and deal with that. This is where we at. You got to deal with this.
Because when you speak about this, it's going to upset a lot of people. So we're going to have to take our time in the scripture. So bear with me. Two answers to that question. One, I already addressed in the rotting stick of false restoration and the synagogue of Satan teaching. And that is, who are the true Jews? You see, the ancient Egyptians were a Kemetic people. They were black.
Come on.
I've come across videos of some white people talking about the true Hebrews or the true Israelites of the Bible. And this narrative has been there. This confession or this topic as the modern Jews, especially Ashkenazi Jews of the...
Ruddy in his appearance. He was called Detroit Red. He was mahogany or ruddy in appearance. So we have to dig in further, because if King David was an Ashkenazi, white Jew with a reddish complexion, he would have been described as Laban, an albino, but he wasn't. So King David looked more like Malcolm X than he did King Henry VIII, right?
Come on.
But I mean, the DVDs we give our children, right? Oh my goodness, like you were saying, the Israelites have British accents, right?
My goodness, it's outrageous. But look at ancient Egypt hieroglyphics, and they are ruddy. The Egyptians have got ruddy black skin, mahogany skin, reddish black complexions. Even the Ethiopian Jews, they're called the Falashas, meaning those that are black. Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 10. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshippers, the daughters, my dispersed ones. That's the Queen of Sheba and her sons migrated and dispersed to Ethiopia. Lamentations chapter 4 verse 2. The precious sons of Zion are comparable to fine gold. Verse 8, their visage is blacker than coal. And the concise Oxford English Dictionary, the 10th edition, tells us that visage is a poetic literary of a person's face with reference to the form of their features. A person's facial expression is what?
So it's vestige. So that's the same thing I keep talking about in Isaiah 52, leading up to Isaiah 53. And they want you to think JC is the suffering servant in Isaiah 53. But listening to this, and you go to Isaiah 52, he tell you, he's describing that vestige. Okay.
Blacker than coal. You start to connect the language and you start to see. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9, verse 27. We have got the Ashkenazi sons of Japheth that have infiltrated into the land and are what? They've got the whole world convinced.
It's shameful.
The whole world convinced that they are sons of Shem. But look what it says in Bereshit chapter 9 verse 27. It actually tells you that Yahweh, who is omnipotent, it is his will because he has actually deceived them into doing this.
Check it out.
They are so deceived into doing this. Look at Genesis 9, 27. Elohim will entice and deceive. The Hebrew word there is patah.
The Lord of hosts.
Patah. He will deceive Japheth, Ashkenaz, the sons of Japheth, and he will dwell, that means Ashkenaz will dwell in the tents of the Shemites.
So he got them there. What we're looking at right now, synagogue of Satan, he deceived them, he got them there.
What's happening today? Has he deceived the Ashkenazi so much, those from the Russian steppes, the Caucasians, he's deceived them so much that they're actually dwelling in the place where the real Shemites should dwell.
Deceived.
Genesis 9 verse 27.
Let that find me.
You see, Yahweh is the one that has deceived. He has enticed Japheth. Patah, deceived, enticed. He's deceived and enticed the Ashkenazi Jews into believing that they're the Jews, and they've built the Zionist state of Israel today. And Delilah made Shimshon Samson sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks off his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. You see, Samson was the first Rasta. He was a Negro lion fighter, similar to the African Maasai tribe, Judges 14:5 and 16:19. You see, Samson tore a lion apart as he would a young goat. And as a Nazarite, he wore 7 dreadlocks. He was mahogany in body color, just like Malcolm X. And his visage was blacker than coal. He was a Negro. Lamentations 4, 7, and 8. And this is really hard for people to see in Scripture. Because predominantly it has been the Caucasians that have been in charge of the Scriptures, right? For millennia. Lamentations 5:10. Our skin was black like an oven. Job 30 verse 30. My skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. And Yahweh shall bring you into Mitzrayim, Egypt again, with ships. And the way of which I said to you, you shall see it no more again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies for slaves and female slaves, and no man shall buy you. And that is what happened to the regal class of the house of Judah. And I want to give you a brief history. I won't go into it too much, but I can't just make that statement because there'll be people who will push back. But I want to give you a brief history on slavery. I was just amazed, I got to tell you. I mean, when you come to America and you talk to people about slavery, you can talk to black people about slavery, white people about slavery, and they'll give you all this history on slavery, and it only goes back to the 16th and the 17th century.
16th, 17th.
And you're like, don't they teach you the history of slavery? Why? Ask the bloody question. Exactly. Why are they only teaching you the history of slavery as far back as the 16th and the 17th century? Why are they only going that far back?
Bible scholar?
Because they don't want you to go farther back than that. Because then you'll actually find out the truth. But from the 16th and 17th century, we'll teach you about slavery. You've got to go further back.
Exactly.
And you've got to understand and question, why do they do this throughout the whole of America, in all the public schools? Why do they only go back as far as the 16th and the 17th century to talk about slavery? We've got to go further back than that.
Come on.
Because Islam designed infernal slavery. And then the Ashkenazi
Negroes ought to be shameful, right?
Khazars, those who say they are Jews and are not, are the ones that marketed it, and the regal Negro nomads exiled from the kingdom of Judah were the main recipients of it at the hands of the indigenous black Africans.
Psalms 83.
Because you've got to understand, the regal class of the house of Judah came down from Israel, and they came into the land of the black Africans. And the black Africans resented the regal class of the house of Judah in their land because they had laws, they had customs, they had civility, and they were a regal class of Negro that came down into Africa. And later on, it was the Ashkenazi, the Islamic slave traders as well, that then worked together with the indigenous black Africans.
Same thing they're doing right now to bring this temple in.
To enslave the regal house of Judah. This is what we've got to understand, but you've got to go back before the 16th century to understand the roots.
Kill your New Testament.
So we're going to see, as we dig into this, where this slavery came from, because it was really a system that was very, very well crafted.
Exactly.
There was Islamic masters, and there were white Ashkenazi Khazar ship owners.
Okay.
There were the buyers and the sellers. And they're not going to fill you in on all of this, but really you've got a 4-tier system. Number one, you have the Negro nomads that were exiled from the kingdom of Judah.
143 BC.
Number two, you had indigenous black African hunters that resented the regal Negro nomads that had come into their territory with their own customs, with their own laws that were different and would not assimilate into their tribal culture. They were their own tribe. They were the regal house of Judah. Number three, you had Islamic trappers that worked with the indigenous black Africans.
David tell us that all through the Psalms.
The regal Negro house of Judah. And then you had them sell them to the Ashkenazi ship merchants. Let's keep switching the identity to hide the people. Why don't we just keep renaming you? Are you Negro? Oh, no, you're not Negro. No, you're colored. No. You're not colored. You're African American. And this is what they name you. The slavers name you this. Do you see how African American is a misnomer?
Exactly.
It's a misnomer. Don't check that box.
Exactly. New Testament.
It's not true.
JC a misnomer.
So again, we've got the 4-tier system. Number one, we have the regal Negro nomadic class that are exiled from the kingdom of Judah. They are their own royal tribe in Africa. Then, number two, we have the native black African trackers. They're going to track them down. And number three, we have the Islamic trappers, because between 650 of the Common Era and 1900 of the Common Era, 10 to 20 million people were enslaved by the Arab slave traders. Over 20 million enslaved Africans were delivered through the Trans-Sahara route.
So let's look at that right quick. So he says the number is astronomical, right? Where they come from? Where all these so-called regal house of Israel come from? Our God told us he gonna make us like the sands of the sea. There it is right there. That's where all these Negroes come from. He didn't complete the promise that he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That massive number left Israel and went into Africa and set up on the west coast of Africa. And like I said before, this is a European telling you this. You got these Negroes and Hebrew Christians talking about JC. It's shameful. Okay?
To the Islamic world. Can you get your head around that? That's not even touching the Americans.
Exactly.
Over 80 million more blacks died at the hands of Islam en route.
Now we indigenous. So like I said, I'm gonna deal with this. One of my first classes I'm doing at noontime. But the name of this channel, or the name of this video is White Pastor Asserts Hebrew Israelites were black people and the entire church went silent. So what I do is I post it on our feed, and then so you have access to it. Okay. Anybody got any comments, questions?
Shalom, Brother Leonard. To me, when he mentioned Islam too, mentioned Islam involvement with slavery, and then how I learned about the Arab slave trade or what have you. Like you said, that's shameful. You know, a lot of Hebrew men stand on the Nation of Islam or whatever like that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and they have no idea. Like you say, well, they just go back to 1600. That's it. And then like and that back to, like I said, you educated by them. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go back to 1500. When they tell you about JC, you're just gonna go to, they told you JC. You're not gonna go back and do the research. And then when the creator sends somebody to give it to you, you can't see it. And not only that, you got to understand right here, they done lied to you about Noah's sons. Japhet ain't none of his son, and Ham ain't none of his son. The man just told you they left Israel and went into Africa, and the Native American the Native Africans that was already there, they ain't none of his sons. Shem is his son. And if you can't, you're not gonna see nothing if you believe in all that. You know, you just falling backwards in the dark, like I said. Ham ain't none of his damn son. Look what he done to them in Egypt. And it took the Lord of hosts had to come and sever them from them. Come on, how does his son? How they kinfolk? And then look what Japhet doing now. Say now, ain't no damn kinfolks. That's what they done told us. And like I said, this is shameful. in 2026. Okay, yeah. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and start reading this, our 5 scriptures. We in the book of 1 Samuel. We're gonna read chapter 16 through 20. You're gonna read chapter 16, Anidra?
Yes, sir. Shalom. I didn't have my page. I'm sorry. 1 second. 1 Samuel chapter 16. And the Lord said unto Samuel, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil, and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I name unto thee. And Samuel did that which the Lord spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming, and said, comest thou peacefully? And he said, peaceably. I am come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass, when they were come, that he looked on Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as a man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, neither has the Lord chosen this. Then Jesse made Shammah to pass by, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord have not chosen these. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servant said unto him, behold, now an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servants, which are before thee, to seek out a man who is a cunning player on a harp. And it shall come to pass, when the evil spirit from God is upon thee, that he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well. And Saul said unto his servants, provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me. Then answered one of the servants and said, behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning and playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse, and said, send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. And Jesse took an ass laden with bread, and a bottle of wine, and a kid, and sent them by David his son unto Saul. And David came to Saul, and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. That was 1 Samuel chapter 16. Shalom.
Okay, shine a light on a couple of things. One of them was, one of them is, if you notice, they said in verse 7, same thing they did with Saul. It says, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on his height or his stature, because I have refused him. So go back to Saul. And then another one is, I mentioned this earlier, when you go to verse 16. So the Lord now commanded thy servant, which is let me see where I'm at. Oh yeah. So the Lord told in verse 1, and the Lord said unto Samuel, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil and go, and I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among thy sons. So no, the people chose Saul. The Lord of hosts, our Redeemer, chose David. And notice what he did. He told him to take the horn of oil with him and anoint him. That didn't happen to JC. The Lord of hosts he wasn't even there, he had nothing to do with it. Mary sit there and busted a alabaster box, crying and wiping his feet with tears. But this is how you know a king right here. Just like Balaam said. Okay. So you're gonna read chapter 17, Joyce?
Shalom, everyone. Yes, sir. I might have some background. I'm keeping this my little great niece. First Samuel chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle and were gathered together at Shochem, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shochem and Ascah in Ephesiadam. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together there and pitched by the valley of Elon and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistine named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Verse 5. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shackles of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's he- head weighed 600 shackles of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let them come down to me. If he can be able to fight with me and kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. Verse 10. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of the Ephraite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went, verse 15, excuse me, but David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. and carry these 10 chiefs upon the captain of their 1,000, and look how they brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. Verse 20. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spoke according to the same words, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. Verse 25. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up, and it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is the uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered after him this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left these few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and thy naughtiness of thy heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I done now? Now done, is there not a cause? Verse 30. And he turned from him toward another, and spoke after the same manner, and the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he went for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivereth me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of his Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. Verse 40. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a and script, I'm sorry. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield and went before him. And when the Philistine looked about, he saw David. He disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, to mine hand, and I will smite thee and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses to the host of the Philistine this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all of the assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle of the Lord, and he will give you into his hands. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took the thence a stone and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. Verse 50. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him, but there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until they came to the valley and the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way of Shaaraim, even unto Gath and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said unto him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite. Lehemite. That was 1 Samuel chapter 17.
Okay, got anything?
This is the faithful story of David in the Lord of hosts, how he had so much faith that he would be able to, with the Lord of hosts' help, to take the Philistine down. And even his brother didn't think he was coming there to do that, but he was, and everybody wanted to know who was his father, and it told him that it was Jesse. It was his father.
Right, right. So he already had an encounter with a lion and bear. So his confidence was soaring. So he wasn't trying to hear none of that.
Yes,
That's how we
sir.
got to be. Okay, so yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, in
Going
verse 54, excuse me, sir, in verse 54, when he said, And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. Is this the armor of the Philistine? So he kept that
right,
armor because he didn't.
right,
Okay. Yes, sir.
right. Exactly. You gonna read 18 and 19, AJ?
All right, yes, sir. In First Samuel 18, and it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would let him go no more home to his father's house. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him and gave it to David, and his garments, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his girdle. And David went out whithersoever Saul sent him, and behaved himself wisely. And Saul set him over men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it came to pass as they came, and David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, that the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women answered one another as they played and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day forward. And it came to pass on and it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand as at other times, and there was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice. And Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him and was departed from Saul. Therefore, Saul removed him from him and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. And Saul said to David, Behold, my elder daughter, Merab, her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou valiant for me and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, Let not my hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. And David said unto Saul, Who am I, and what is my life, or my father's family in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the king? But it came to pass at that time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given unto Adriel the Mahalathite to wife. And Michelle, Saul's daughter, loved David. And they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines might be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the name, in the one of the twain. And Saul commanded his servant, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say, Behold, the king has delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law. And Saul's servants spake those words in the ears of David. And David said, Seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed? And the servants of Saul told him, saying, On this manner spake David. And Saul said, Thus shall you say to David, The king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Verse 27, wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew the Philistines, 200 men. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David. And Saul became David's enemy continually. And the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was much set by. And Shalom, that was 1 Samuel chapter 18.
Got any feedback on that?
Brother Leonard, I kind of read over this before, just how they say Solomon was so wise. I mean, they
Right.
mentioned David. Yes, sir. They mentioned David being wise in that book, Gad the seer. But I
Right.
read over these verses, like in verse 30, where it says, "And the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth that David behaved himself more wisely." Would you think that that's speaking to his wisdom, not just like he had like manners and all of that, but his intelligence as well?
Yeah, yes. The Spirit of God was on him. Same way
Right.
with Joseph. The way Joseph conducted himself.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that the thing was stuck out to me was 23. It says, if you go, before I read that, you go to well, I'll read this first. 23 says, Saul's servant spake these words into the ears of David. David said, seem it to you, after all that David done, right? And how everybody running behind him, says, and David said, seem it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed. So then you go to Isaiah right quick, 66. This is another example that David, he's going to raise David up in the last days. So you go to Isaiah 66, start at verse 1. Thus says the Lord, the heavens is my throne, the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye have built unto me? And where is the place of my rest? For all these things have mine hands made, all these things have been, said the Lord. But to this man will I look, even him that is poor and of a contrite spirit, tremble at my word, as David all day long. Okay? Is that something?
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna read 19.
66. Right, yes, sir. And it says, Saul wants David killed. And Saul spake to Jonathan, his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul my father seeketh to kill thee. Now therefore I pray thee, take heed to thyself until the morning, and abide in a secret place, and hide thyself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where thou art, and I will commune with my father of thee and what I see, that I will tell thee. And Jonathan spake good of David unto Saul his father, and said unto him, let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he hath not sinned against thee, and because his works have been to thee-ward very good. For he did put his life in his hand and slew the Philistine, and the Lord wrought a great salvation for all Israel. Thou sawest it and did rejoice. Wherefore then wilt you sin against innocent blood to slay David without a cause? And Saul hearkened unto the voice of Jonathan. And Saul sware, as the Lord liveth, he shall not be slain. And Jonathan called David, and Jonathan showed him all those things. And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence, as in times past. And and there was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines, and slew them with a great slaughter, and they fled from him. And the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul, as he sat in his house with his javelin in his hand, and David played with his hand. And Saul sought to smite David, even to the wall with the javelin, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence. But he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. And Saul also sent messengers unto David's house to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, if thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And Michal took an image and laid it in the bed and put a window of goat's hair, and put a pillow of goat's hair for his bolster and covered it with the cloth. And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, he is sick. And Saul sent the messengers again to see David, saying, bring him up to me in the bed, that I may slay him. And when the messengers were come in, behold, there was an image in the bed with the pillow of goat's hair for his bolster. And Saul said to Michal, why hast thou deceived me and sent away mine enemy, that he is escaped? And Michal answered Saul, he said unto me, let me go. Why should I kill thee? And so David fled and escaped and came to Samuel to Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went and dwelt in Noath. Dwelt in Noath. Verse 19. And it was told Saul, saying, behold, David is at Noath in Ramah. And Saul sent messengers to take David. And when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as a pointing over them, the Spirit of God was upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. And and when it was told Saul, he sent other messengers, and they prophesied likewise. And Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they prophesied also. Then went he also to Ramah, and came to a great well that is in Sechu. And he asked and said, where are Samuel and David? And one said, behold, they be at Noath in Ramah. And he went thither to Noath in Ramah, and the Spirit of God was upon him also. And he went on and prophesied until he came to Noath in Ramah. And he stripped off his clothes also, and prophesied before Samuel in like manner, and lay down naked all day and night. Wherefore they say, is Saul also among the prophets in Shalom. That was 1 Samuel chapter 19.
Okay, you got anything?
Brother Leonard, and is this is like that scene that was a spell put over Saul right here? Like some
Yeah,
type
it was already on. It was already on when the wicked spirit came on. The wicked
Okay.
spirit. Right. Okay. I'm gonna read chapter 20. Jonathan covenant with David. David fled from Near in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? And he said unto him, God forbid, thou should not die. Behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. And David swore moreover and said, thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he saith, let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a steep step between me and death. Then said Jonathan unto David, whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I shall not fail to set with the king at meat, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the third day at evening. If thy father that all miss me. Then say David earnestly, ask leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he say thus, it is well, thy servant shall have peace. But if he be very wroth, then be sure that evil is determined by him. Therefore thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant, for thou hast brought thy servant into a covenant of the Lord with thee. Notwithstanding, if there be in me iniquity, slay me thyself, for why shouldest thou bring me to thy father? And Jonathan said, for be it from thee, for if I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would not I tell it thee? Then said David to Jonathan, who shall tell me? Or what if thy father answers thee roughly? And Jonathan said unto David, come and let us go out into the field. And they went out, both of them, into the field. And Jonathan said unto David, O Lord God of Israel, when I have sounded my father about tomorrow, any time, or the third day, and behold, if there be good toward David, and then send not unto thee, and show it thee, the Lord do so, and much more to Jonathan. But if it please my father to do so, to do thee evil, then I will show it thee, and send thee away, that thou mayest go in peace, and the Lord be with thee, as he hath been with my father. And thou shalt not only while yet I live show me the kindness of the Lord, that I die not, but also thou shalt not cut off thy kindness from my house forever. No, not when the Lord hath cut off the enemies of David, every one from the face of the earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, let the Lord even require it at the hands of David's enemies. And Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is a new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself. And when the business was in hand, and shall remain by the stone Ezel, and I will shoot 3 arrows on the side thereof, and thou I shoot at the mark, as though I shoot at the mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, go, find out the arrows. And if I expressly say unto the lad, behold, the arrows are on this side of thee, take them, then come thou, for there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord liveth. But if I say thus unto thee, young man, behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord hath sent thee away. And as touching the matter which thou and I have spoken of, behold, the Lord is between thee and me forever. Okay? So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king set him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon the seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by the Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean, surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to me, neither yesterday nor today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, let me go. I pray thee, for our family have a sacrifice in the city, and my brother, he have commanded me to be there. And now I have found favor in thine eyes. Let me get away. I pray thee, and see my brethren. Therefore he cometh not unto the king's table. Then Saul anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said unto him, Thou son of the perverse, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion and unto confusion of the mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die. And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said unto him, Wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? And Saul cast the javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, did eat no meat, the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame. Say the parting between David and Jonathan. And it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time of the appointed with David, and a little lad with him. And he said unto his lad, Run, find out now the arrows which I shoot. And as the lad ran, he shot at an arrow beyond him. And when the lad was come to the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan cried aloud after the lad and said, Is not the arrow beyond thee? And Jonathan cried after the lad, Make speed, haste, stay not. And Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the lad knew not anything, only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave his artillery unto his lad, and said unto him, Go, carry them to the city. And as soon as the lad was gone, David arose out of the place toward the south, and fell on his face to the ground, and bowed himself 3 times. And they kissed one another, and wept one with another until David exceeded. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, for as much as we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord be between me and thee, and between me, my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. So that was 1 Samuel chapter 20. I just read. Okay. Anybody have any comments on that? Okay. So with that being said, we'll read a scripture, and then we'll break it down and then close out. Somebody got a scripture?
Shalom, Brother Leonard. I got 1 Kings 9 and verse 20.
Okay.
And it's about the Canaanites, how you was talking about earlier. And it says all the people that were left are the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which were not of the children of Israel, their children that were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel also were not able to utterly destroy. Upon those did Solomon levy a tribute of bond service unto this day. In Shalom, that was 1 Kings 9 and verse 20.
Right, yeah. So we see that when the Zodaran dictionary, it also says that Ham. It talked about Ham's children, and it says Ham had put Canaan and Mizraim, but not the Negroes. After so Israel was not from Ham. So they, like I said, they're not kin. But like the so-called Europeans, Greece, wrote into our scriptures that they were brothers. Ham, Shem, and Japheth were brothers. When Noah had Shem, and you understand the story. Noah had Shem, and then you had Ham, which was the 6th day man that was created on the 6th day. Abraham was created on the 8th day. Then you had Japheth, which came from Cain. Cain came from the encounter of the serpent with Eve. So those lineages, they 3 different lineages. Shem came from Noah, not Ham and Japheth. And like I said, all you have to do is look at what's going on. Look what Ham did to Shem in Egypt, and look what Japheth did, and what he's doing right now. We ain't no brothers. That's a lie from the pits of hell. Okay. Anybody got anything else before we go? Yeah. So I'll post that video. So with that being said, I'll say shalom, shalom, and another shalom. I see everybody. We got our Women's Advanced Bible Study tomorrow, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. The men can come in through YouTube. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
I highly recommend that you get this book and you read it, because it's a must that you understand who God head is in the order that's in the Old Testament in Tanak, because it's not the same as in the New Testament. And when you read this and you get an understanding, then the scriptures open up, and then you begin to understand. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It's the Elohim of Israel, and it's a breakdown on the word Elohim and who the God of Israel is, and the Godhead.